It starts with quiet. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that hums underneath the skin, the kind that makes you scan the room before you breathe too loud. People call you calm, composed, grounded. They say things like, "Nothing rattles you," or "You're so level-headed," and maybe they mean it as a compliment. But deep down, you know it's not balance. It's control, it's armor. You learned early that calm kept you safe. Maybe it was the only language your house understood. When anger filled the walls, when chaos erupted without warning, you figured out that being still made you invisible. If you didn't react, maybe it would pass over you. If you smiled, maybe no one would break. That's how the calm ones are born, not from serenity, but from survival. As a child, your nervous system became fluent in restraint. Every outburst you witnessed, every slammed door, every sharp silence taught you one rule: emotions are dangerous. Joy invites attention. Sadness invites shame. Anger invites punishment. So you learned to flatten the waves before they rose, to steady your voice even when your heart was trembling, to swallow your fear until it dissolved into something else, composure. People see calm. What they don't see is the storm underneath. They don't see the hyper-awareness, the mental rehearsals, the quiet self-erasure that happens before you speak. You learn to monitor tone, predict reactions, preempt conflict. You became a peacekeeper before you even understood what peace meant. And the world rewarded you for it. Teachers loved your discipline. Friends admired your patience. Partners relied on your stability. You became the safe one, the rock, the voice of reason. But no one ever asked why you needed to be. This is what psychologists call emotional suppression. But for people like you, it's not a habit. It's a nervous system strategy. When your body associates emotional expression with danger, your brain rewires itself to favor regulation over release. Calm isn't just a personality trait, it's a learned safety mechanism. Your vagus nerve, your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex, they all conspire to keep you composed because, once upon a time, falling apart wasn't an option. You don't just control emotions, you anticipate them. You can feel tension in the air before a word is spoken. You pick up on micro-expressions, pauses, sighs, the subtle shifts others miss. You call it intuition, empathy, awareness. But it's really hypervigilance dressed as wisdom. It's your body scanning for emotional weather patterns so you can adjust before the storm hits. Over time, that calm becomes identity. You start believing you are this person, the unbothered one, the helper, the emotional anchor. And it feels good. For a while, being calm gives you control in a world that once felt uncontrollable. It earns you trust, admiration, love. But beneath that control lies exhaustion, because calm is expensive. It costs you spontaneity, authenticity, vulnerability. It costs you your own emotions. The irony is that people who are always calm often carry the deepest chaos, but they've hidden it so well that even they forget it's there. You tell yourself you're just easygoing, that you don't need much, that you're low maintenance, but really, you've just learned not to need what might not be given. You convince yourself you're self-sufficient, that peace comes from within, when in truth, your calm is a castle built around your heart. Maybe you were the child who watched others explode and promised never to be like them. Maybe you were the one who comforted everyone else. The mediator, the listener, the emotional sponge. Every time you absorbed someone's pain without complaint, your brain learned that control equals safety, and safety equals love. So you silenced yourself kindly, politely, completely. You don't yell, you don't cry, you don't fight. You explain, you rationalize, you intellectualize. You turn emotion into analysis because logic feels safer than vulnerability. And it works until it doesn't, because you can't outthink a feeling. You can only postpone it, and the body keeps score. Somatic psychologists call it stored emotion, the energy that never got to move. It shows up as muscle tension, headaches, insomnia, or a strange, aching fatigue that feels like grief without a name. Still, you keep the mask. Because what if you stopped? What if you let the calm slip? Would people still love you? Would they still see you as stable, strong, dependable? Or would they see you as too much, too emotional, too human? That's the secret fear of the calm ones, that their worth is conditional on their composure. So you breathe deeply when you want to scream. You smile when you're aching. You say, "It's fine," when it's not. And you tell yourself, it's maturity. But real maturity isn't suppression. It's integration. Calm without honesty is not peace, it's paralysis. Yet the world mistakes one for the other. That's why people call you chill. They think your silence means serenity. Your composure means confidence. They don't see the small sacrifices it takes to stay that way. The thoughts you swallow, the needs you postpone, the pain you minimize. Because if you let even one tear escape, it might unravel everything. You might notice that people confide in you easily. They tell you their stories, their fears, their chaos. They trust you because you feel safe. But after the conversation ends, you sit alone, carrying all their weight and none of your own release. You've become a container for other people's storms, but you never let it rain for yourself. This kind of calm is quiet heroism and tragedy, because it's built on the belief that your emotions are burdens, that your job is to hold everything together, that chaos is your responsibility to prevent. And that belief seeps into everything, your work, your friendships, your love life. You listen more than you speak, and that you give more than you receive. You regulate while others unravel. And at the end of the day, no one ever sees the effort it takes just to stay steady. They see peace, but peace shouldn't hurt this much. What's really happening beneath this constant calm is something psychologists describe as fawn response, one of the lesser-known trauma responses. When fight, flight, and freeze don't work, the body learns to fawn, to appease, to soothe, to manage others as a way to stay safe. The calm ones are often fawners in disguise. They read moods, de-escalate tension, offer comfort not because they're naturally saint-like, but because, long ago, keeping others calm was the only way to protect themselves. So when people praise your composure, they're admiring the very mechanism that hides your pain. You're not just calm, you're contained. And containment is heavy. It's like holding your breath for years and calling it meditation. But here's the truth no one tells the calm ones. Your stillness isn't fake, it's sacred. It's the intelligence of a child who found a way to survive chaos. You were never wrong for needing control. You were ingenious. You made safety out of silence. But safety and peace are not the same thing. One is a shield, the other is freedom. That's the difference between calmness as armor and calmness as wisdom. One comes from fear, the other from presence. One shrinks you, the other expands you. The work of healing, the psychology behind learning to truly rest, begins when you can tell them apart. Because calmness rooted in fear says, don't react or you'll lose love. Calmness rooted in healing says, you can feel everything and still be safe. And that shift, that single internal rewrite changes everything. But it starts with something simple and terrifying, allowing the storm you've been suppressing to exist. It's strange how being calm can make you invisible. People look at you and see balance. They don't realize it's a balancing act, a delicate, exhausting dance between emotion and control. You've built your life on stillness, and it's served you well. You rarely panic, rarely lash out, rarely break. But underneath that steadiness lives a kind of loneliness that no one talks about, the loneliness of never being seen in your full emotional range. Because when you're always calm, people stop checking in. They assume you're fine. They assume you don't need help. They assume your silence means peace, not suppression. But the truth is, there's a quiet ache in always being the steady one. You become everyone's emotional anchor, but who anchors you? You give advice, listen patiently, hold space for tears that aren't yours, And when it's your turn to fall apart, your mouth can't form the words, because vulnerability feels foreign. You've built a reputation on composure, and now you're trapped inside it. This is what emotional resilience looks like when it turns into emotional isolation. It's the paradox of the calm ones. You crave closeness, but fear disruption. You want to be understood, but you speak in measured tones that never reveal how deep the current really runs. You say you're fine because it's easier than explaining why you're not. And with time, that fine becomes your entire personality. Psychologically, this pattern is linked to emotional inhibition, a learned disconnection between what you feel and what you express. Your nervous system learned early that expression equals danger, so it now keeps emotion on a tight leash. You don't cry, not because you don't feel, but because your body doesn't trust what might happen if you did. You don't shout, not because you lack anger, but because anger once meant loss of safety, love, belonging. So your calm becomes a compromise. You keep yourself small to keep things smooth. You bite your tongue to avoid conflict. You downplay your needs so no one feels burdened. And every time you do, your nervous system rewards you with temporary safety. That's the addictive part. Calm feels like control, and control feels like peace. But it's not peace. It's postponement. Eventually, that calm starts leaking. Maybe through exhaustion, maybe through numbness. You wake up one day realizing you haven't truly laughed in months. You watch a movie that should make you cry, but you just sit there dry-eyed, detached, watching yourself watch it. You tell yourself you're okay, but your body whispers otherwise. It whispers through insomnia, tight shoulders, a heart that races for no reason. Because even calmness, when held too long, becomes a cage. You start to notice how it shows up in love. You fall for people who admire your stability. They say things like, "You're so grounding, you make me feel safe." And maybe you do. But deep down, there's a part of you that wonders if they'd still love you if they saw your chaos. So you keep editing yourself, keeping your edges soft, your voice even, your needs small. You give them peace, even when it costs your authenticity. And they think you're perfect, not realizing they're loving the mask, not the person behind it. The calm ones often end up in one-sided relationships. Not because they're weak, but because they've been trained to absorb imbalance. You give and give, thinking love is maintained through harmony. You fear being too much, so you become less. You call it emotional maturity. But what it really is self-abandonment disguised as serenity. And the world applauds it. They call you strong, stoic, unflappable. They don't see that your strength is built on suppression. That you're not unflappable because nothing hurts you, but because you never let it show when it does. At work, you're the dependable one. You never lose your temper, never crumble under pressure, but you also never let yourself be fully seen. When people talk about authenticity, you smile quietly, because you've spent a lifetime being authentic only within safe parameters, calm, competent, contained. Anything beyond that feels like exposure. Psychologists describe this as functional freeze, a state where the body is active and performing, but the emotional system is shut down. It's the nervous system's way of staying efficient in danger. You can work, think, lead, parent, all while feeling oddly disconnected from yourself, like you're performing your life instead of living it. And when you finally rest, that's when the emotions come. In the quiet hours, when there's no one left to comfort, no crisis left to manage. That's when your own heart begins to stir, confused, restless, aching. You might find yourself suddenly crying over something small, a song, a memory, a random moment of kindness, and not understand why. It's because the calm has cracks now, and what's been buried is trying to surface. Healing for the calm ones isn't about learning to be loud, it's about learning to be real. To let your inner weather change without shame. To realize that calmness isn't the absence of emotion, it's the capacity to hold it without fear. And that capacity can only grow when you stop judging your storms. Maybe you'll notice the first signs of healing in small ways. You'll sigh more deeply, you'll cry, and it won't feel like failure. You'll say, "I don't know," and resist the urge to fix it. You'll admit when you're angry, not with a scream, but with honesty. You'll start to realize that real calm isn't about control. It's about safety, the kind that allows your nervous system to exhale. This is where shadow work begins for the calm ones. It's not about dismantling your composure. It's about meeting the fear underneath it. The fear of conflict, the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen in your full emotional truth. When you begin to sit with that fear, instead of avoiding it, calm starts transforming. It becomes choice, not compulsion. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what happens to people who are always calm. They think they're choosing peace, but often, peace is choosing them as protection. It's the unconscious saying, "Stay small, stay steady, stay safe." But true peace doesn't need protection. It expands, it invites, it breathes. When you begin to feel your emotions, not analyze them, not manage them, just feel them, something miraculous happens. Your calm starts coming from compassion instead of control. You no longer need to suppress anger because you understand it. You no longer fear sadness because you've learned to comfort it. You no longer avoid joy because you trust it won't be taken away. That's emotional freedom, not detachment, but safety within connection. For people who are always calm, healing often looks messy at first. You might cry more. You might feel anxious, confused, even irritable, because your body is learning a new language, one of expression instead of repression. You might feel like you're losing control, but really, you're regaining authenticity. That's what growth feels like. Chaos at first, clarity later. One day, someone will tell you, "You've changed, you're not as calm as you used to be." And you'll smile because you'll know what they really mean. You've stopped pretending. Maybe calm was never your personality. Maybe it was your armor. And now that you're safe enough to take it off, you're discovering what peace actually feels like. Soft, breathing, alive. You'll start to realize that true calm isn't about never being shaken. It's about trusting yourself even when you are. It's the difference between silence born of fear and silence born of presence. One hides, the other holds. So, if you're one of the calm ones, here's what you need to hear. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to be messy. You are allowed to disappoint people who only loved your quiet version. You don't owe the world serenity, you owe yourself honesty. Because your emotions were never the problem, the lack of safety was. And now that you're building safety inside yourself, you don't need to hold everything together anymore. You can let go, you can breathe, you can finally rest. The calm that once protected you is no longer needed. The calm that will guide you now is different, softer, slower, real. It's the kind that doesn't hide anything. The kind that lets you cry, rage, laugh, love, and still come home to yourself. That's the psychology of people who are always calm. It's not weakness, it's wisdom, but it's wisdom born from pain. And like all pain, it asks to be felt before it can be freed. So let the stillness crack open, let the emotions move. You've spent a lifetime keeping everything under control. Now it's time to let your calm breathe, not as protection, but as peace. Because the world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your presence. And you finally deserve your own.